Hi guys, and welcome to the show. I am in Reno. I'm here for an air race. I'm actually staying here, this giant hotel. It's a bit like Vegas. First thing you see is slot machines when you get out of the plane. Crazy. Anyway, getting kind of fear and loathing vibes. I'm gonna go and check in over there. Just checked in. Landed literally an hour ago. A quick wristwatch check. Sorry about the light. I do apologize if I look sleepy and everything, but yeah, it's I got my new Tudor, which we'll do an unboxing in just a moment. And then if I change over, I got my Fortis. Usually when I travel, I got my GMT, so this way I have dual time zones, and also obviously I'm here to support Fortis on their air race, which I will shoot and then publish hopefully in the coming weeks when I get time to edit. But anyway, yeah, in the meantime, I thought I'd share with you the unboxing of this. This has actually been the culmination of months of waiting, hunting about, consolidating my collection, because actually October is when I do my annual yearly state of the collection. So without further ado, let's change perspectives and take a closer look. We'll do a knife, I was about to say a knife watch check, but a knife check anyway. So dear old Kershaw Leak there, designed by Kenyon. I adore this little, very compact, great knife, made in America. Love the design. Not everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's an absolute bargain. This is actually my second one, and this time around I went for the olive. I will be doing a knife collection. Actually, I don't even need a knife. I have a... There we go. I will be doing a state of the knife collection soon. So actually, yeah, I do need the knife. Let's make a small incision there. And guess what? Yeah, that's right. Another box. That's where the serrated edge comes in. Yeah, so as you can see, I didn't buy it with box or papers, but the price was so irresistible. And I know you're gonna know from the title of the video. Ooh, there it is. This is the 79090. A drum roll, please, while we turn it over. Actually, we'll do it properly. Let's turn it around. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's another Tudor Sub. This is from 1993, and nice bracelet. The bracelet is slightly older, actually. This is the CL11 bracelet with the 380B end links, I think. Oh, look at that. So this actually came from a private seller. I wanted to get it off Watchbox, of course, but they just didn't have this reference. And this is the 39mm. Let's have a look at the back. Yes, it's looking good. Oh, look at the volume on the Tudor Shield. That is a good sign, because it stands out nice and proud. It hasn't been over polished. In fact, what the pictures, if it is the same one as the pictures, which I hope it is, let's remove this plastic and find out. What attracted me was the fact that it was in such remarkable condition and still had chamfering on the edges. So let's have a look if that is the case. Yeah, look at that. You see that right there? That's what I'm looking for. You know, big, bulky. I mean, this is an early reference, but, you know, not over polished. Look how sharp that edge is. Let's look at the dial. Oh, it's already going. Beautiful. This is slightly earlier with the tritium luminescence and the prouder standing plexiglass. I just love how that sits. And yeah, you got the trip lock, still the Rolex signed crown. The case was still done by Rolex at this time, as was the bracelet, even though this one is signed Tudor. Let's have a look at that case back. Yeah, a little bit of wear and tear, but hasn't been over polished. These are hollow end links, but that's typical of this period, so I'm not fussed about that. 200 meters of water resistance. Inside we have the ETA 2824. which is just so easy to service and affordable to service. Quick set, hacking, all the rest of it. Amazing condition. Let's look at the top lugs. The lugs is always the first thing I look at. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be over polished at all. Let's look at the bezel edge there. Still nice and sharp, nicely defined. Yeah, really, really good condition. Let's cycle through and see that quick set in action, of course. Mercedes hands, all original. There's a little bit of patina you can see on that minute hand, but that's fine. As long as they haven't been replaced, that's fine. Here we go. Let's see it. Yeah, nice and crisp change over there. Yeah, so it's supposedly it's performing in COSC, but I mean I'll give it 24 hours. The pearl on the bezel is still there. This should be, yeah, bi-directional. You see, this is before the last of the line, before the Tudor subs got replaced by the Hydronauts, which, you know, was something different entirely in design and look. Especially these were much more faithful, obviously, to the bigger brothers at Rolex, and in a way, I mean, this is almost, I mean, if you took the logo and changed the logo to a Rolex crown, you wouldn't be able to distinguish this from a reference 1680 of the same period. The center links, are they hollow? Yeah, you can see, look, you can see the light. So this is an older bracelet, hence the weight is less, but they do have, sorry if you can see that, screwed links. This is going to be perfect for my skinny wrist. 39 millimeters. It is quite tall at 13, sorry, but that's fine. I love the vintage character that the plexiglass gives. So yeah, really chuffed with this. This to me is what eventually is going to replace my contemporary sub. I know it's going to ruffle a few feathers, but yeah, it'll make sense when I explain. Let's just look at the sides. Yeah, a little bit of scratching. I prefer that than having it over polished. Look at that dial. It's that lovely matte black dial. So yeah, very happy. Let's take it back to the studio. I should just do the show like this. So we're back in the war room. Yay! God, just got really dizzy. I'm definitely not doing that again. You can probably tell by my voice, I'm suffering from the remnants of a horrible flu I caught on the flight returning home to Philly. But yeah, it's been a week. I'm going to discuss why I think this is my perfect Submariner. Yeah, I know I'm going to ruffle some few feathers, but look, this is my own watch, so it's my own personal opinion. Reno was amazing. I can't wait to share the video. I've got like a 4-day mammoth edit to do, but you know what, I'm not complaining, because sharing it with you guys, it's gonna be a pleasure. And it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, interviewing pilots, hanging out with the team, wearing amazing watches. What could be better than that, you know? In the desert, it's so cool. Anyway, I can't wait to share that, so stay tuned. But in the meantime, let's bring it back to the Submariner. I've got to go out, get some groceries. The fridge is completely empty, so I thought, you know what? Let's take the camera with me. Not very glamorous, but you know what? Let's get on with it. So here we are at the Vietnam War Memorial. You would have seen this in the Rolex Explorer 2 video. I always come here. It's always deserted, place for reflection, and also to commemorate the sacrifice of all these soldiers that died in such a horrific conflict. Coming from a military family myself with such a long history of military involvement, I don't know, it kind of makes me thankful for the freedoms I have. Whenever I come here, I'm always picking up litter, I don't understand why people would desecrate a memorial like this. And actually next door is the World War II memorial as well. 80,000 Philadelphians involved in Vietnam. And it's interesting because if you remember, the 7928 was issued to the US Navy during the time of Vietnam. So I can only assume that some of them actually saw conflict.
My relationship with the Submariner is a long one. It was my first Grail watch, and I finally made it a reality for my 30th birthday all those years ago. Since that time, I fell in love with the watch collecting hobby deeply, and my appreciation for it only increased. However, tastes unavoidably change. This is perfectly natural when one acquires more knowledge, experience, and exposure to the world of watches. And so, about 6 months ago, my search for a new Submariner started. After reviewing and trying the two-tone and a few vintage Rolex subs from the Watchbox inventory, I came back to Tudor and started looking at their iconic divers. I borrowed an older and historically important and very charming rose dial no date 7928 from Watchbox. I then shot a video in New York City's Central Park, chronicling the rich history and evolution of the Tudor sub. Today I'm not going to revisit that history, as I've already discussed it extensively before, but in doing so, it really made me realize how influential and illustrious its design was. People often erroneously dismiss these subs without the Snowflake hands as mere homages, unaware of its own achievements and the fact it was from a pre-homage age, you could say. The Tudor sub is in fact the exact embodiment of what the brand founder Hans Wilsdorf intended it to be. An affordable alternative, but one with the look and style of the bigger brother brand counterpart. This remains true to this day, being more than half the cost of the 1680 equivalent from Rolex on the used market. Also, we must take into consideration it is far more affordable than the Snowflakes, which have skyrocketed, as we all know. But this sweet spot will not last forever, as supply is limited, and Tudor started to take on far more of a distinctive style after this reference was discontinued. One only has to look at the subsequent Hydronaut or the modern Pelagos and the Black Base to see what I mean. As you guys know, I buy for pleasure, but knowing that this is also a safe investment is certainly a factor I cannot deny. What assists this situation greatly is the ever-increasing rise in the price of steel sports models from Rolex people endlessly complain about. Personally, I have only admiration for how the brand controls its value. I do not see it as exploitation of supply and demand, but rather a cunning regulation. But then again, I have a very different mindset to most so-called millennials, who have been known to have a tendency to be very self-entitled. If you really want something, you work twice or 3 times as hard as the next guy to get it. It's that simple. I don't waste energy complaining about things I do not control. I just get on with it. A byproduct of this price rise is that these Rolex-styled Tudor models will undoubtedly benefit, especially as good examples become harder to find.
So this is the aptly named American Street, and as you can see, yeah, very American. I adore the colonial architecture here. It's very endearing and reminds me of London. I've probably said that like a million times, but yeah. Very charming little back streets of Philadelphia. I adore it.
So why do I love this reference and consider it my perfect Submariner? Heritage is undoubtedly one of the biggest determining factors that makes this my preferred sub. I have stated on more than one occasion that I will always have a Tudor in my personal collection. Hans Wilsdorf was a massive Anglophile, and its former rose logo are directly inspired by the British royal dynasty. The Tudors were crucial in laying the foundations of empire and reform that would set Britain on a path for greatness in the following several hundred years. They ruled for a collective 118 years, and during their reign encouraged new religious ideas, overseas exploration, and subsequent colonization. Tudor England had 2 of the strongest monarchs to ever sit on the English throne, Henry VIII and his daughter Elizabeth I. And while they did not change the rest of the world drastically, and define the modern world like the much later British Age of Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution, the Tudors were crucial in allowing Britain to get to that point. Growing up mostly in England and visiting many of these monarchs' palaces, most notably Hampton Court, this brand naming has a very special significance and connection for me. The fact it says Tudor and not Rolex on the dial gives me a special feeling. While it undoubtedly looks like a Rolex, I know it's something a little less ubiquitous, and this makes me smile every time I look at it. For anyone still ignorantly insisting it is a homage, well, facts simply prove otherwise. The Tudor sub has a legacy that started only a year after the first Rolex in 1954 and has just as much involvement with military and prestigious navies around the world that I have discussed in great detail in several videos. Knowing this gives me a sense of pride, just as much as when I wear its counterpart from the bigger brother brand. This 79090 was first introduced in 1989 and was important because it featured a return to the triangle and circular markers of the first generation of Tudor subs. This was something Tudor had done away with since 1969 and the introduction of the Snowflakes that ran for the subsequent 2 decades.
So this beautiful ship you see here was actually in the Rocky and the Godfather movie. It's been converted from a cargo ship that circumnavigated the globe into a bar. You see the bar there, and also a restaurant inside. It's pretty good. You would have seen me visit here on the Instagram. I might go and get a drink, I don't know. Let's see if there's enough time. Yeah, the sub says we got enough time, so let's grab some vodka.
Perhaps the most important strength of the 79090 is its wearability. Its 39mm diameter is utter perfection. Don't get me wrong, I adored my 36mm size of the slightly later 75090, but that extra 3mm here makes it more legible, more desirable, and gives a more masculine, reassuring presence. The weight is kept down by the entirely brushed tapering bracelet with hollow center and end links. While it lacks the heft of later oyster bracelets, it does not stretch like the flimsy smaller links of a vintage Jubilee. The weight is a reasonable 162 grams in total. While on paper it is only 1mm less than my modern super case Rolex sub, on the wrist it feels a million miles away, and even more compact compared to the Tudor 7928 no date, which was 40mm in diameter. It truly is amazing how 1mm makes such an impact. Hardly noticeable to the eye, but most definitely on the wrist. Talking of the case, one major strength a recently serviced oyster case based watch will always have, no matter the shield or crown on the dial, is the water resistance. Of course, I will not be going diving anytime soon, ever again in fact, with my lung condition. But compared to the most vintage watches of the same age, it's difficult to beat this 200 meters water resistance, and it still maintains a reliable protection against water, thanks to the screw-down triplock crown. In fact, earlier this year, I acquired and sold, within a matter of weeks, a stunning 34mm Blancpain Bathscape MC4 from the 60s. But unlike the sub, the lack of screw-down crown and plated case made me so scared to ever wear it. It simply became an object of admiration, rather than a usable daily tool it was originally intended for. In contrast, the sub is bold, rather macho, and certainly does not feel as fragile. I vowed to myself I will return to Blancpain in the future, to ease the pain of having to let go of such a historic and pristine example from the inventor of the modern dive watch. This perfectly underlines just how Rolex and Tudor still remain wearable, unlike so many other vintage pieces of the same age or even older. While we are on the subject of robustness, the ETA 2824-2 is another determining attribute that helped me take this reference over the 7928. While the rose logo and no date might be far cooler, lusted after, and more important historically, The lack of availability of parts both inside and out scared me a little. Over the years, I have owned many Tudors and always ETA based. Inevitably, with such frequent ownership, a need for a service of the movement will occur, and paying no more than a few $100, even for the most complex overhaul, is a price I am comfortable paying. ETA parts are also plentiful, and servicing can be carried out by any decent independent watchmaker affordably.
So you join me here at the stern of this majestic ship. Absolutely fantastic. The views of the Delaware River, historic to American history, and of course Philadelphia behind me. It's a bit like the Catasauqua, only you can drink, which is so much better. God, I nearly bashed my head on that beam there, but yeah, look at Philly in the background. Pretty cool, huh? Nobody here. Wow. It's just gone 4. In 15 minutes, happy hour starts. So yeah, and they're playing Bob Marley. What can I do? I gotta stay, right? One thing I haven't said about the Tudor is it is, thank God, performing in COSC as the seller stated. So that goes to show. I mean, they had 100% feedback. I would have loved to gone with Watchbox, but I literally missed this reference by a couple of weeks. I just didn't have the cash ready. I still was considering getting the no date with the Tudor, but that 40mm size, yeah, it just doesn't compare to this beauty right here. But anyway, I wish I could have bought it on Watchbox, but you know, I got my day date from Watchbox, and undoubtedly I'm sure I'm going to buy a hell of a lot more watches from them in the future. I'm thinking Lange next. Something German, something dressy, something horology. Yeah, why not?
My final reason why this is my perfect sub is down to versatility. Not just in everyday use, dependable performance, usable robustness, but stylistically. As my collecting tastes have evolved, I find myself more drawn away from multiple colours and appreciating the monochromatic black and white based colour schemes far more. Like the classic Rolex sub adverts have always boasted, it works just as well suited and booted as it does under the ocean. This true any situation practicality is not an easy thing to pull off, and only a few watches tend to do this so well as the beloved sub. It is unquestionably a large part of its success, and there is literally no attire or strap that doesn't match this watch. Something not so true about my previous blue 75090. Despite it being the nicest and subtle blue I have ever owned, I still felt it clashed sartorially on occasion and didn't work with as many strap combinations as the black dial and bezel will. Some details I especially like is the matte dial has a natural patina, and that it has become a very dark grey over time. The tritium lume is also turning a creamy off-white that no reissue with faux patina can ever come close to. The negatives for this watch are forgivable considering it is very much a product of its day. The diver extension is an afterthought and embarrassingly rudimentary. The stamped clasp does have a flip lock and micro adjustments, but really nothing to write home about. My main issue is very personal indeed, and that is the fact that the luminescence holds no charge. Because if you are like me and you often wake up at 4 to 5 a.m., this can be disappointing not to have any nighttime legibility whatsoever. But a small price to pay for that gorgeous natural aging. I would of course love to see a rose logo on the dial, but that simply is preference and would not be correct to the reference, so I can live with it. The plexiglass will definitely be a negative for most, but it's so thick, substantial and integral to the vintage feel, again, I can live with it perfectly fine. Obviously, I would love it to have the discreetness and balance of a no date, but I must confess I have a memory of a goldfish, so the date is actually very useful. For some, the Rolex Submariner is a cliche, for others overhyped, but for me and countless watch fans, it still remains one of the greatest iconic watches ever made. The Submariner has been a pillar in my collection and will continue to be so. I could not envisage my collection without one, and Rolex will forever be my second favourite brand after Seiko. But now it's no longer the crown on the dial of my sub, but rather the shield belonging to the underdog, the enthusiast's Rolex. A sub from one of the last great true generations of Submariners of Tudor, which is, at the end of the day, simply, well, more me.
Anyway, what a fitting place to end this video at. The bar is fantastic. If you ever come to Philly, please do check it out. Happy hours started, so I'm gonna go and get some more vodkas. Before I get too trolleyed to finish this video, let me know your favorite Submariner in the comments below. What reference is your choice, or your grail perhaps? I'm over the moon with this, what can I say? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, found it useful, and as always, I will catch you a little bit more sober in the next one. Okay, ciao.